Hello, it's Jacob Hill with GRC Academy. Today I'm here with Mr. Michael Greenman from Deltek. Michael, how are you today?
Doing great, Jacob. Thanks for having me back.
And folks, if you're enjoying the podcast, please take a moment to like, comment, share, subscribe, review, all the things. Really helps me out. Thanks in advance. Well, Michael, thank you so much for coming back on. For folks who don't know you, tell us about yourself and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, thanks. So the last time we talked, almost 2 years ago, I think. I've been with Deltek now 4 years. But prior to Deltek, my journey was all government administration, and actually I worked in elections administration for many, many years. And so recovering elections person, as some of them say. But I went back to school, got a degree in cybersecurity, wanted to stick pretty close to that because that's where my heart is. That's where my passion is. I had the opportunity to join a great company like Deltek that's been around for a long time, serving government contractors, specifically defense contractors, an interest of mine. And I got early exposure to CMMC, the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification, in its infancy. Pre-pandemic, right around pandemic time, and fell in love with it, if that's appropriate to say, and was really excited about that, and have been kind of tracking that progress ever since I've been at Deltek. And at Deltek, I've worked on the product strategy side my whole time here, both as a product manager and now in product marketing, which gives me the opportunity to kind of be an evangelist of sorts for not only what we're doing at Deltek to help prepare and support our customers' compliance efforts, but also to spread the good word and work with industry experts like yourself to really kind of harmonize the message and educate the folks that frankly need a lot of help. And there's a lot of noise out there, and trying to help to be one of the ones to cut through it with the facts backed up with industry expertise.
That's awesome, Michael. Well, obviously you're in the CMMC space, and I understand you have some really interesting stats to share. Go ahead and do that for us.
If you weren't aware, Deltek every year puts out what we call our Clarity research report in all the industries that we cover. That includes government contracting, as well as construction, architecture, and engineering. I am fortunate to help out and work with the government contracting study, which it's in its 15th year of collecting the thoughts, opinions, feelings, market intuitions for a solid group of government contractors from all walks of life, all different roles and all different types of businesses. And we've been asking this cohort questions about CMMC for the past couple of years. But this year we really kind of dialed it up a little bit and got some really interesting information. One of the newer questions we asked this year was, do you plan on having a CMMC assessment in 2025? And even to my own shock, the numbers came back very large. Over 70% of the respondents said that they plan to have a CMMC assessment, third-party assessment, this year in 2025. Which bucks some of the industry thinking or grumbling that the DIB is not getting it, that they're waiting, falling behind. We've got some solid data that indicates that the sentiment is the opposite. That the folks that are at least our study and our cohort think that it's time to do it, and that from all sizes and all different industries that have defense contracts. But even further, in addition to, again, the vast majority thinking that they'll need either a CMMC level 2 or a level 3 assessment, we asked their opinions about pricing or about cost so far, which the industry doesn't have a whole ton of data on this yet. So we thought it'd be interesting to kind of baseline a little bit. And what we found was that SMBs, small businesses, have spent to date for just preparation for CMMC, ballparking it around $50,000 or so, whereas enterprise is much larger to the tune of 100K, 250K, and up. But there's a clear delineation there, and we expect to kind of really dig deeper into that in the coming years. And we'll leave a link to this study in its full entirety in the show notes here, and certainly want you to check that out. But it's great data. It's good news. I believe the industry gets it, and we're starting to get better insights as to what does this really look like in practical application, other than educating folks on the rules, on the expectations, and those kind of things. It's good to get some feedback on the ground, and that's what this study, seeks to find out.
Yeah, wow, that's very interesting. Folks, check that out in the show notes. Well, last time we spoke, you said that you all were on the journey to FedRAMP and addressing that requirement. As we all know, if a defense contractor has a cloud service provider that they use to process, store, transmit CUI, DFAR 7012 has a requirement for FedRAMP Moderate Equivalency. And you all just recently achieved FedRAMP Moderate Equivalency. So very interested to hear your experience. Tell us about that.
Yeah, lots changed in 2 years. And again, thanks for having me back on the pod here to give an update. So way back when, 2 years ago, it's amazing how things changed so quickly. We were on the path. And so just quick background with Deltek, we offer many software products, but we've got one, Costpoint, which is used by a large number of defense contractors specifically. And we have a cloud offering version of that we have kind of put forth to be like the compliance version, our Costpoint GCC-M. So all my statements here are related to that particular offering. And so back 2 years ago when I was chatting about it, we were on the cusp of getting onto the FedRAMP marketplace and achieving FedRAMP Moderate Ready status. And at that time was a big deal. Our plans were to eventually seek authorization, ATO. But what we were hearing, and is still the case, is that you need an agency sponsor. And since we don't sell our Costpoint software to government agencies, no go there. So ready status was what it was going to be, and make this big splash announcement until DoD put out the memo, as it's known, where equivalency, this kind of like artifact that sat in the DFAR 7012 clause since it was published in 2016, 2017, where it had now this full definition, like really like right at the same time. And so it was like, we were ready to say, look at all this great stuff we did. And then it's like, wait a minute, ready status doesn't really
we're
do
sorry
anything.
We asked, actually.
Yeah, now we got the strong definition. So we kind of said, yeah, we're on the path. We're still going. All right, we thought we were at the finish line. Nope, it just got moved. The goalposts got moved a little bit, but turned out being a good thing for us. And our cloud team and our GRC team did an amazing job. Double timed it, last year to not only renew the ready status for this year, but to pursue this equivalency designation. And for those who don't know, equivalency in the memo is defined as basically all of these components, to include a system security plan, the security assessment report, and other artifacts, pretty much everything that you would need to get an ATO, except not get the ATO. So we put all those things together, hired a FedRAMP recognized third-party assessment organization, Shellman Compliance, went through all of that and made it out through the other end, have the golden ticket, and now we can say we can't say achieved. The lawyers don't like that. So what we say is Costpoint GCC-M has completed its third-party assessment for the FedRAMP Moderate Equivalency with our third-party assessor.
Got it. So I think the memo, did it come out 2024 January? I believe
it was.
Right?
I think officially published. I don't know if it was public, but like December of 23.
Okay.
Or maybe. Yeah, I think it was December 23, and then it became public in like January of 24. Or February 24. And then that was, again, right around the same time that we were going to publish or go out with our ready status announcement for Costpoint GCC-M. So that was just amazingly coincidental timing that happened with that. And, not much sense other than just that definition of equivalency, which it's, so many words ahead of trying to explain what it is. The goal would be, we would love to be on the FedRAMP marketplace as authorized. It's that agency sponsor hitch. And then another kind of sort of false start, I guess, if you will, was prior to the change of administration, there was an OMB memo that was put out that talked about the next generation of FedRAMP. And one of those new components talked about what was called program authorization, where you would not need an agency sponsor. Perhaps there would be some reciprocity with all the work that had been done. And it sounded really, really good. And then, the new administration came in and kind of took a sledgehammer to every, memo or directive from before. And, now it's a new ballgame with lots of different, potentials, hopefully better. But at the same time, we're in a good place for our defense contractors that we serve, again, that store, process, or handle that protected information in our cloud environment.
So that memo comes out December 2023, January, I think it became public. And how long did it take you to address the gaps based on that memo, the new requirements that you had to address? I mean, one of them, I think, being 100% compliant on the control set.
Speaking of things that we had to do differently in 2024, so calendar year 2024, we not only had to double down because for FedRAMP Moderate Ready status, you produce what's called a Readiness Assessment Report, or RAR. I always love the name of that. And it's a subset of the controls and control objectives. It's not the full, 300 some odd controls, 500, 600 some odd assessment objectives of the FedRAMP Moderate baseline based on NIST 800-53. But not only do you have to up level to all of that, get all those controls assessed. I'm not saying the security wasn't there; it just had not been officially assessed yet. So It was going back and doing all that. The other thing that happened during that same time is that when we had our ready status assessed, we were assessed at FedRAMP Rev 4. And and then the other thing that happened in 2024, that's why I say our GRC team, cloud team, worked miracles in 2024. It was a lot. They had to up level everything to FedRAMP version 5, 800 NIST 800-53 version 5. So all of that, all the new stuff. You talked about POAM items. Putting together this. Security assessment report, which is a huge report. It's a lot. It's a big thing. And one thing I failed to mention is all of those components together, that's called this body of evidence. And that's what an assessor is meant to look for cloud service providers in a CMMC assessment or a DFAR 7012 assessment to achieve that equivalency designation.
From the customer's perspective, you mentioned that body of evidence that they need to request from you all and have on hand for their assessment. That's also very interesting. Something else that comes out of the FedRAMP process is the shared responsibility matrix. And what's interesting here is CMMC is still based on NIST 800-171 revision 2, which maps to revision 4 of 853. And then, but you all obviously went with the newer standard, 853 revision 5. So did you kind of make it easier for the customer and give them a 171 SRM, or how did that work?
So that was also another learning experience. And I've talked to other cloud providers that have gone through this, and there's a couple, not even just ATO, the whole equivalency route. And it's kind of like this unique little fraternity of people that have gone through, and they're like, well, how was it for you? What did you do here? How did that go? And hopefully that grows. But the one of the learnings that came along, at least for me here on this path, was in the shared responsibility matrix or customer responsibility matrix, depending on what the reference is, right? Because one is the CMMC term and one is not. Gets super easy, right? Is that, the mappings were critical, right? We were right out of the gate because, our Costpoint GCC-M offering is, relatively new. It's only about 5 or 6 years old. And so right out of the gates, our CRM was all of the 853 controls. And so we would provide this to our customers. They're like, what are we going to do with this? And so as assessments started, we started getting requests for just give me the ones that relate here. And so through the course of things, some good advice and some help, we were able to put together a kind kind of a Rosetta Stone, I suppose, if you will,
Yes.
something that relates it directly to the 800.171 controls, which is of a great benefit to customers, way more relevant, and definitely to assessors. So, if you're out there listening to this and you're a cloud provider, make sure that your CRM, SRM has the mappings to 800.171, because that's what your customer and their assessor needs.
Yeah, that is extremely helpful. I know that a lot of FedRAMP authorized solutions only have the 853 mapping, no 171 mapping.
It's a lot.
Oh my goodness, creates a bit of a lot of work for every customer.
Yes,
who has to account for CMMC.
Be nice to your customer.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. What else was interesting about addressing that memo in 2024?
Really, yeah, just kind of going through it and learning all the various things that where the lines break down. Starting with the CRM, SRM, that's what we've been providing, the extended version for many years. Boiling that down and getting that to a point where it's helpful to our customers. But I would say that the next big challenge, once you have all of those items that are defined in the memo, which again, all you got to do is look on the FedRAMP website, and it's very similar. These are all the pieces that you need for an authorization. It's a package. The only difference is this package doesn't go to the FedRAMP PMO for their blessing. It just stays with you and your third-party assessor. So once all of that was done, we had these documents together, and even I was kind of like, all right, is there a celebration? Is there some kind of like award presentation or something? No, there's not that. Luckily, thankfully, our third-party assessor was willing and able to provide us with something more simpler, a letter that we could provide to our customers, so we did not have to dump a body of evidence on them if they just requested that. And that leads into the real finding there, which was, how do you distribute this body of evidence to a customer? Because there's no real guidance on this. And don't want to speak too far out of turn from our legal or GRC here, but at a high level, there's many different options. And I've spoken to some industry folks about this, as well as friends. And some take it the route of highly restricted, like read-only access. You can see it, but it'll explode in 30 seconds or something like that. We've taken a different route, which we have a process built for our customers, and we're rolling that out. And that is, it involves our customers signing an agreement saying that you're taking possession of these documents. Don't lose them. It's on you. You're in the chain of custody, but we will give you full access to them. You have them. You can take them. And all I can say to reemphasize is it's a lot. The security assessment report itself is, if you were to print it out, literally thousands of pages of things. And not to mention, the system security plan, any POAM items, and the other one, the SAP, I always forget the name for it. The policies. And so all of these things all together, plus, the CRM, SRM, it is a lot for a customer to have. And certainly an assessor is not going to read through all of it. They're going to look for what they're going to look for. But we grant that full access as a trust mechanism to our customers. But the real learning thing here was, how do you come up with a policy that you can ensure security and chain of custody for this information that's going out, but also serve your customer? Because, like I said, like with a lot of things with CMMC, as this rolls out, there's not a whole lot of definitive direction. It's going to have to probably go through a couple cycles, iterate, figure out what efficiently makes sense, and maybe someday there'll be a marketplace for equivalency if we can't get an ATO. Ideally, we and like others that can't want to get an ATO. It'd be so easy for assessors just to go on the FedRAMP marketplace and say, "Yep, you're good." Until we have a marketplace for equivalency, it's going to be a lot of sifting through documentation for customers and their assessors.
Let's dive into the pros and cons of equivalency. And I think I'd like to lead out with one con is the continuous monitoring or lack thereof, requiring annual full assessments from a 3PAO. I had a conversation with DoD about this at an event, and I understand their position because there's no continuous monitoring. However, on the other side, defense contractors are basically in the same boat. CMMC Level 2 certified. The only difference is they annually affirm that they are still good to go, right? And I don't understand why DoD doesn't allow CSPs to do the same thing, have that 3PAO assessment, annually affirm, yes, we're still compliant. I suppose the main difference is that, in theory, CSPs, they don't have any contractual requirements to DoD, whereas DoD defense contractors do. So I guess that's probably the main difference. To me, I don't know. I think there should be ways around that, no cost contract or something, you know what I mean, to levy those requirements. And I'm sure legal would have all kinds of, issues and conversations and challenges to address. But that's, to me, a big con. And just from what I've heard in my experience, because there's no continuous monitoring, there's no reporting into DoD, they just don't trust anything. And so it's almost like a point every time a customer comes in with a FedRAMP equivalent product, it's like a point in time assessment, for that product.
And technology changes quickly.
Yeah, right. So do you have any thoughts on that issue there?
Can give you a mollified case study of our own. So we got our equivalency assessment as of April 1st, right? That's when it's that's our year-to-year date right now, and we have to get reassessed and get that renewed, as you mentioned, by next April 1st to maintain that equivalency status. And much like CMMC, or really an ATO, I suppose, when you think about it as well, when there's a significant change to your data flow or infrastructure or new components or anything that wasn't in scope or wasn't assessed the last time, it's kind of like an honor system, right? But to stay in compliance, you got to let your assessor know. You got to let the entity know. So, you can kind of see DoD's perspective of like, at least I know every year there's some independent full assessment being done. It's not the trust system, which didn't work for DFAR 7012. But as you mentioned, because cloud service providers are, a third point in the chain in the whole relationship, I can see why it would be the higher standard, the higher threshold for security. And honestly, it's not a bad policy. We're going to keep up with it. That's something that we can do. But there are some companies that this might make or break, right? If they're not doing enough business in DoD, they might say not worth it. Just like the same small businesses, right, that are deciding whether CMMC is going to keep them in it or not. I could see a scenario where certain cloud service providers, if you can't architect all the data out of it, which is another question, saying, no, I'm not going to keep up with this cost of doing a full, FedRAMP Moderate Equivalency assessment every year, for X amount of business that I do. So it is a bit of a toll, cost of doing business. But, if you follow, Katie Arrington's words, Stacey Bostjanic's words, and everybody at DoD, and certainly the industry professionals, this is what DoD wants. This is, we are tired of messing around. We want this data to be secure, tired of it flying out the door. And, a lot of people were concerned with the new administration coming in saying, efficiency, this is just a waste. CMMC and all of these rules and requirements are not a waste, right? Right. This is gonna plug up a gigantic hole that has been in place probably since the advent of the internet, with the Defense Department, with any government agencies and their contractors, which they rely on. So securing data, that's the future. That's kind of one of my talking points now. Each time I get out there is like, look, security, cybersecurity, compliance, it's the future. It's not the past. Get ready, buckle up. It's time to go.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Give us a pro of equivalency.
It's certainly a differentiator for sure. Much like CMMC level 2 certification for a subcontractor that doesn't handle CUI. It's something that primes are going to look for, I suppose, for those customers or those businesses as they're building their teams. That they want to have the best package together, and it's a great thing to say, like, look, all of my subcontractors that are, whether they touch CUI or not, I can architect it, 20 different ways to make sure that it's all secure. But wouldn't you feel better if the whole team, had, their certificates, their receipts, and I could prove to you that this is the security team? So I would liken that to the equivalency thing. It might not come into play in a lot of situations for government contractors, specifically DoD contractors, but it's certainly nice to have, right? It's something to say that, look, you can trust my marketing materials all day long, and you can feel good about all the great things that I say about whether the product or cloud security. But isn't it nice to know that if needed, somebody, an authorized, a recognized organization, which all they do is turn over stones and go look for stuff in these assessments, has run your product through the ringer, and you've come out on the other end with this. It's not even a badge. It's just a gigantic report called this body of evidence, which we could again hope that we can turn into an authorization someday, which makes things a lot easier. But to button all that up, I would say that it certainly demonstrates your commitment to your customers, to the industry, that you're willing to do this. You're willing to invest the cost, the time, the money, and institute all the stuff that the organization itself has to do in order to maintain this compliance. So that's the way I look at it.
Mm-hmm. What about cons from your perspective?
Oh gosh, like I said, I think we talked about a lot of them. Certainly the keeping up with everything. Sure, that's tough. It would be easier to sit on the sidelines and say, just make sure your data doesn't get in our solution. It would be a lot cheaper. It would be, way easier, but that's just not the intent of this program. This program is to secure, this CUI data, CDI data, CTI data, ITAR data, all the data, and it's just, it's a con in that it is a bit of a it's cost of doing business, right? It's a burden. It's all those things. But again, the way that I think about it, it's the con is on purpose, right? It's meant to be difficult. If, as they say, if it was easy, everyone would do it. And you can tell based on the number of companies that have at least publicly stated that they've gone through this. It's a small bunch, and hope it grows, much like the number of certified third-party assessors. But for now, it's a small group, but it's a very dedicated group, and again, hope to see more companies go this route.
As a CSP yourself, what are some alternative approaches in your mind that DoD could take to FedRAMP Moderate Equivalency? Like, all options are open here. What are some recommendations that you might have for them?
Oh, yeah, boy, given the proverbial magic wand, huh? I think that some of the inefficiencies of what cloud service providers are treated as, looked as, I think there's just a lot of assumptions. Like, what is a cloud service provider? I know they've got their definitions, and I've heard the presentation so many times now. It's kind of funny. When an ESP is a CSP and not an ESP, a CSP, all the fun stuff, which everybody glazes over. Cloud service provider means the same thing as, whether it's an Amazon Web Services, which most businesses, a lot of businesses, it's the global leader of being kind of cloud infrastructure. They're a cloud service provider. Oracle, Google, Microsoft, all of them. But, your software as a service, your ERP, case in point, our Costpoint GCC-M solution, your file share system, your email system. There was recently a False Claims Act settlement where a third-party email cloud service provider was not only not FedRAMP equivalent, authorized, or anything. The customer never asked, and the company never said anything. So there's just such a broad definition, and I think it's difficult for people to fathom, what the differences are. And it's, it's infrastructure. It could be software as a service. It could be platform as a service. All these different things, and your average rank and file person is not going to know those differences. So it would have been nice, or would be nice, for either different categories of cloud service providers and to handle them appropriately, or to be more specific and be more intentional, so that again, organizations seeking certification can better understand that cloud services mean X, not I need, my calculator and my reference sheet to figure out whether you're a cloud service provider or an external service provider. So like with anything, it's clarity. And I fully suspect, the program to evolve and to account for these things as it rolls out. Because I myself, I try to stay, tapped into the community, go to CMMC events like Sequest, where we saw each other, CS2, and now the combined Juggernaut CS5, which everybody's excited and looking forward to. Stay tapped into that community to listen to what they talk about. And there's very little discussion about cloud services. And, I myself don't have data, but I'd be curious to know how much CUI or protected data ends up in third-party cloud, storage facilities or service providers that the industry doesn't really have eyeballs on right now. Now, we're one piece of the puzzle. We can't come in and solve all your CMMC compliance needs or DFAR 7012 needs, but we're one part of it. How many other parts do you need to make sure are secure, to make sure you, as the defense contractor, are end-to-end secure?
Yeah, that's very interesting. Something else I heard a while ago, floated around as an idea, was getting rid of completely the FedRAMP Moderate Equivalent requirement and just allowing them, the CSPs, to address NIST 800-171. And to me, I know FedRAMP, that's cloud, right? I understand that. But I suppose the concern might be, what if the guy, he's not addressing availability because NIST 800-171 doesn't, require that? Well, in my opinion, the market would take care of that problem very quickly, just based on people's their equipment going down. Like, okay, we can't use this provider anymore because they're just not addressing that requirement. And I think that whenever they did create NIST 800-171, they were really intentional about just addressing what was required.
Protection of CUI for defense contractors, right?
Yes, and that confidentiality of that. And so
to make it easier and make it more adoptable, because I don't know the full history. I'm not the history professor at all on the evolution of FedRAMP or 853 to 800-171. But I think I remember hearing that, one of the original thoughts was to try to dump all of 853 on contractors, and like, no, that's not going to work. So that makes sense. 800-171 is like, you want to do business. Okay, we're not telling you to have, Fort Knox security, but, you at least got to do this much. But when the data then goes to another part, right, another third party, and on and on and on, like we lose more and more control and more vision into the security. So it makes logical sense. Now, obviously, I'm a little biased because we've got the FedRAMP side of things, but that argument does get made, and that's also another area of confusion, and has been for many years. Is what meets the standard, right? Could Deltek, could other cloud service providers go get a CMMC certification? And the answer is yes, you could. Does it matter? No. Unless you're doing business directly with the DoD. If we were going to sell our software directly to the DoD as a government contractor, they would want us to have a CMMC, certification, right?
Yes.
But in the role that we're playing, which is serving defense contractors, we're that third link, and so we're held to that higher standard. So one of the things when I get that question, and our customers are getting more and more up to speed on this stuff, is they will ask, when are you going to go get your CMMC certification? And I always have to explain, it's like, yeah, I mean, this is a program for defense contractors. We could certainly go do that. And actually, we could probably demonstrate evidence that we're worlds beyond that with this product because of all the additional controls, all the additional security measures, especially with the equivalency assessment report. But the messaging they hear is like, oh, you need the CMMC level 2 cert. Well, no, you do, and your external service providers that are not CSPs need that, and it becomes a whole long education process where it would be great if somebody could just bumper sticker this and say, look, if you're this, you need this, which would make it simpler. And maybe it's just time, and it's discussions like this, hopefully, that draw more attention to it for those that are ready for the deep dive. But I will say, overall, the good news is that, at least based on some information, data that we've collected, it seems like the market gets it. And it's just a matter of how much of the market gets it.
This has been really interesting, really insightful. Thank you so much for your time. Anything else you'd like to leave us with?
No, hopefully we left you with a lot. I am very, very gracious and appreciative of the opportunity to come on to your podcast. I listen to episodes every time I can. It's great information. I love what the community does and how supportive we are of each other in this compliance message. So thank you for what you do.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michael. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Jacob.
Hey, folks. Hope you enjoyed that. If you want to see more, be sure to subscribe and then check out this video.